Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto returned Kage level after training trip Harem Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. As the waterfall continued to fall in the middle of the Valley of End, two people were staring down each other. The first person had blonde hair, whisker mark in each side of his cheeks, an orange jumpsuit on, and something else different than his usual appearance, red violent chakra cloak that resembles fox with one tail. As a result, his whisker mark became more defined, his teeth, fang-like, and his cerulean blue eyes, now red with silted pupils. He was the vessel of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, Uzumaki Naruto. The second person had raven-colored hair, red eyes with three tomos in the irises, a blue shirt with white short pants on, and something else different than his usual appearance as well, cursed seal elevated to level 2. As a result, his skin became dark gray, his hair, longer, his nose, marked by a dark star-shaped mark on its bridge, and his back, winged with hand-shaped appendages. He was the last of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. Both of them had been fighting for quite some time. It was very evident in their battlefield had been ruined since they started their battle, and also in their scars and injuries on both of their bodies. Both were at their limit, down to their last attack. Enough is enough. Come on Sasuke, let's go back. You have nothing else to prove, said Naruto. No, can't you see? I need the power to kill him. In order to get that power, I have to kill you, my best friend, the only person that I have formed a bond. Now I will break that bond by killing you, Naruto, said Sasuke. You can gain that power in Konoha with our friends. You don't need to go to Orochimaru, said Naruto, ignoring what Sasuke said about killing him. After hearing what Naruto said, he started to laugh menacingly. You don't understand the power I need, the power I want isn't in Konoha. I can only have that power by killing you and by going to Orochimaru, said Sasuke between his laughs. Before Naruto could think of a response, he saw Sasuke doing familiar set of hand seals. After realizing that the only way to bring back Sasuke was by force, he quickly charged his right palm for his signature jutsu. So it has to come to this, Naruto whispered with sadness in his voice. Time to die Dobi, Sasuke shouted. Then both of them charged holding powerful orbs of energy in the palm of their hands. Chidori. Rasengan. As the two powerful jutsu about to clash, Naruto was thinking of another way to end this battle. What the hell am I to do? I promise Sakura-chan that I'll bring the Tem back alive, but if this continues, I don't even want to think of what's going to happen. There has got to be another way but, what? Those were the thoughts of Naruto. Then suddenly he thought of a crazy way to end the fight and lessen the chance of them dying. I hope this works. If not, well, let's just say at least this will end painlessly. As the two jutsu were about to hit one another, Naruto dispelled the Rasengan. He shifted his body in midair to avoid the Chidori. He then sent a swift kick towards the chin of Sasuke, propelling him upwards. Then, making two shadow clones, he used both clones to give him the right leverage to propel himself upwards as well. As Sasuke headed downwards, Naruto grabbed Sasuke's head and slammed it to the ground below, making Sasuke spit out some blood. Then just to make sure that Sasuke stayed down, Naruto choked him till the mark of the curse seal disappeared and he lost consciousness. As he laid his eyes to his now unconscious teammate, the red chakra started to disappear. His face was starting to turn back to normal, and as he blinked, his eyes turned back to cerulean blue. Then, gathering his last remaining energy in his body, he grabbed the body of his best friend, and struggled as he dragged it back to Konoha. He limped his way out of the valley, determined to return to Konoha with the success of his mission. As he limped, he could feel that his body was practically broken. The fight with Sasuke had taken a hell of a lot out of him. Taking multiple fire jutsu, having faced two Chidori and taken on Sasuke in level 2 curse seal was no joke. That and tapping into the fox's chakra in that level was putting a major strain in his body. Even with his amazing healing ability, he still felt like shit. As his body was about to give in, he saw a blur of red and green heading in his direction. He began to panic. If it was the enemy, he knew that his worn-out body could not protect himself and Sasuke. Luckily it was two of his friend. The moment he lost consciousness, he manages to mutter out in a whisper, "Gaara, Lee." Then, his body finally gave in. Konoha 3 days later. The moment he opened his eyes and noticed that he was surrounded with white walls, Naruto realized that he was in the hospital. With barely the energy, he started sit up and scan the room. He saw that he was in a simple room. With a little table in his side. He could see that there was one little flower in the vase, meaning that there was at least one person that visited him. As he tried to stand, he could feel that his body hadn't healed completely. Then suddenly he saw a person that was like a father to him. "Iruka-sensei, what are you doing here?" asked Naruto. "Naruto, you're awake. You should not be trying to move. You're still in pretty bad shape," said Iruka in a worried tone. "Don't worry, Iruka-sensei. The future Hokage could not be easily weakened by these little injuries," Naruto said while wearing one of his foxy grins. "Oh yeah, that reminds me, where's Sasuke Tem? I can't wait to see him. I bet that he's very pissed off after the beating that I gave him," he jokes while smiling. Iruka couldn't believe him. After what the Uchiha did to him, he still viewed him as a friend. "Naruto, he is in the room at the end of the hall," Iruka managed to say. "Thanks, Iruka-sensei," Naruto said while he exited the room. As Naruto walked to the room of his teammate, he could not stop thinking that he had beaten his rival. That and the reaction of his other teammate. Truth be told, he fulfilled his promise towards Sakura-chan. He wondered what she'd say to him. As he approached the door, it opened to reveal his other teammate. "Sakura-chan, look, I fulfilled my promise too." He was stopped mid-word as he was slapped to the face hard. "How dare you! I asked you to bring him back alive. I didn't ask you to bring him back half dead," shouted Sakura. "But I did not have any choice. If I didn't fight him like that, he would have escaped and he may have killed me," Naruto retorted. Before Naruto could answer back, he was slapped again. "I don't ever want to see you ever again. You hear me? I don't you ever show your face to me ever again," shouted Sakura with anger in her voice as she slammed the door in his face. He was shocked by his friend's reaction. He brought back their teammate alive and fulfilled his promise to her. Maybe half dead, but alive nonetheless. If he hadn't fought Sasuke like that, Sasuke would have escaped, and maybe he wouldn't be alive right now. As he was thinking, an Anbu interrupted his train of thoughts. "Uzumaki Naruto, the council demands your presence," said the Anbu. End of flashback. As he stood to the center of the meeting hall, he scanned around to see the council members. He first saw Tsunade in the middle up. The two people beside him were the two elders. The person below him was a crippled old man. The people in the lowest seems to remind him of his friends, so he assumed they were their parents. "Uzumaki, do you know why you're here?" said Homura. Naruto didn't know what to answer. He just shook his head for a no. "You are here because we are trying to decide your future in this village," said Homura. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked, a little confused. "We recently found out that there is an organization made up of S-rank criminals called Akatsuki, and their goal is to capture all 9 Jinchurikis. While we do not want to hand over the Biju to them, we cannot afford to put the village in danger either. With the sand and sound invasion during the Chunin exams, Konoha has become weaker than ever before," said Kaharu. "This organization out there, we don't even know all their members. The only ones we know so far are Uchiha Itachi, Hoshige Kisame, and at some point in time Orochimaru. If this organization was to launch an attack on Konoha to get the Kyuubi, we can't be sure if we would survive the aftermath, which is why we have decided that Uzumaki Naruto will be banished from Konoha for the safety of the village," said Homura. "Wait. Even if we banish the boy, all we are doing is handing him over to the Akatsuki and they will get the Kyuubi's power." And I for one am not comfortable with handing over the power of the Kyuubi to a group of S-class missing ninjas. This will not eliminate the threat that the Akatsuki pose. All this will do will give them more power and make them into an even bigger threat than they are now," said Shuza, with some members of the Ninja Council agreeing with him. "If we listen to you, then we will be giving the most powerful and destructive force that we know to a bunch of criminals, and I don't think what those criminals have in plan for the Biju will be for the benefit of Konoha or any other village and country in Elemental Continent," said Ino's father Inoichi. "This matter is not something that is for debate. We have already gone to the Fire Daimyo and explained the situation to him. He has given us the go-ahead to banish him, but because of everything he has done for the village, he will not be put in the bingo book," said Kaharu, which caused different reactions among the council members. Naruto hit the ground and slumped over. His world had been shattered, everything was gone now, his dream of being a ninja and goal of being Hokage. "Although I hold no hatred for the boy, I do think it is better that he leaves. In our current condition, the village can't afford to have an enemy like the Akatsuki. With him gone, we can rebuild the village and our forces and deal with the Akatsuki in our own time when we are ready. Also, perhaps with him gone, Hinata will finally give up her silly little crush over the boy and start training more and become stronger like a true Hyuga heiress should be. If not, I have no choice but to put her in the branch clan and have Hanabi be the new heiress," thought Hiashi. The Anbu commander and Aburame Shibi just sadly shook their heads, knowing that this was a mistake that will one day come back to bite them. Shuza just sighed sadly, knowing his son would be greatly affected by this. Shikaku just thought, troublesome idiots. Danzo, Homura and Kaharu just kept their face neutral, much like Hiashi. 1 hour and 30 minutes later. Naruto was in his apartment getting ready to leave and had just opened the documents Tsunade gave him after he left the council meeting. He had just finished reading the document concerning his parents, and when he finished he was so furious he had to bite down on his own tongue just to keep himself from screaming in rage at what he just found out. "They lied to me. Ero Sennin, Ba-chan and the old man, they all lied to me right to my face," Naruto furiously thought. Naruto had just found out he was the son of the Yondaime Hokage and his mom was an orphan from a clan that was from another village, but that was not what pissed him off. What he was furious about was his father was the one that sealed the Kyuubi in him, and that bastard Jiraiya had been his godfather, and the prick left him to rot in the village for over 13 years. He had seen the bank accounts in the documents. They showed his family was pretty wealthy, with his dad being the previous Hokage and his mom coming from one of the founding clans of a village called Uzushiogakure that was destroyed sometime between the Second and Third Shinobi War. They were not the richest families in Konoha, but they had enough money to last them for about 30 years without working. He had to scrimp and save every day of his life with the little amount he got from social welfare from the village, and all this time he had a fortune that was rightfully his. The village kept his inheritance from him. The village even denied him his birthright by keeping him from knowing his family and knowing where he came from, and even took his family name from him. Outside Konoha, outside the village on a hill overlooking it, a lone figure stood looking down at the village for the last time. It had not been too hard to sneak out of the village. He had decided to have one more look at the village before he left. My old life in Konoha is over now and a new one will begin outside it. But you Konoha, I vow this, in the name of my mother Uzumaki Kushina. I will become strong. I will become stronger than my father or anyone else that has ever been, and when I do you will be sorry that you ever banished me, and that is a promise of a lifetime, believe it. Naruto turned his back on the village and started to walk away from it. Few months later. It had been a while since Naruto left Konoha. He had just taken off in a random direction, not really caring where he was going. His first choice was to go to Suna, but that would cause problems for Gaara. Plus he wasn't sure if he would be welcome there with the other people in the village, since he was one of the reasons why the invasion failed. And even if Suna had been tricked into it, they still suffered a heavy loss and a humiliating defeat. Also, that would bring trouble of the Akatsuki to their doorsteps, since even though Gaara was a demon host like him, he could at least defend himself and his village since it was surrounded by sand, which Gaara could control it to an enormous degree. He had wanted to go to Snow Country. He knew Lady Koyuki would welcome him with open arms, but he couldn't go there because they had samurais and not ninjas. They would be easy targets for Akatsuki. The same went for Wave and Tea Country. He knew he needed to be with one of the 5 great shinobi villages to stand a chance of surviving an attack from the Akatsuki. Also, he didn't know much about those small villages, so he didn't know how he'd be treated there. Kiri was out of the question since he had heard when he met Haku that they were in the middle of a civil war. Plus, after he heard how people with bloodlines were treated there, he wanted no part of that village. Iwa was also out of the question since the moment they looked at him or found out where he was from, or even worse, found out who his parents were, he would be killed on the spot and his head hung at the village gate entrance. The final choice was Kumo, but Naruto didn't want to go there since, like Aim, Kusa and Hoshi, he didn't know much about the village other than what Neji had told him in the Chunin finals. They had tried to kidnap his friend Hinata when she was only 3 and thus ended up with Neji losing his father. Because of this, Naruto did not have a very high opinion of that village, so he decided against it. Naruto was still thinking about his friends back in Konoha and was still wondering if they would all hate him as well if they found out about him holding the Kyuubi. Foolish boy, you think those worthless mortals would understand you? Huh, you are more pathetic than I thought, boy. Do you ever learn kit from your past experience? The pain, the sorrow that you're sorry for an excuse of a village inflict on you, or are you just being too stubborn for your own good? Said his tenant as he dragged down his foolish little container to his prison. Will you shut the hell up? What the hell do you know about my friends, huh? Shouted Naruto as he stares down the Kyuubi in his cage. After hearing what Naruto said, he burst out laughing. Ku. Oh, that's why you're wrong, my foolish little container. I have been alive even before your village had been created. I've seen the worst out of you mortals, and I could proudly say that the villagers of your so-called beloved home is one of the worst bunch of mortals I have ever seen, said Kyuubi between his laughs. Will you just shut the hell up? Said Naruto, trying to ignore what the Kyuubi said. Oh, you can keep ignoring me all you want, but you know deep down that all I'm telling you right now is the truth. That your village is full of worthless mortals. That could not even comprehend the difference between a weak human like you to an almighty demon lord like me. Said Kyuubi with a sinister smirk. You dare call me weak? You dare call my kind weak? No, we are not the weaklings. Your kind, and especially you, are the weaklings. Your kind has unlimited amount of power, but still all of you all end in prison, whether it be a powerful artifact or a human being like myself. My kind are stronger than your kind, for we could not just imprison your kind, but we could also use your power as well. Said Naruto with the first time in a long time, with a proud smirk adoring his face. After finishing his speech, he felt a very violent killing intent directed to him. You dare insult me, you worthless piece of trash. You dare call me weak. You should be worshipping me right now for all the times I've saved that unworthy of yours, for all the times I lend you my power to save those so-called friends of yours, and all the thanks I get is you always disrespecting me and insulting me. You are nothing without me, and you would be dead without me. You should know how lucky you are that this cage is blocking me right now, because if it's not, I will rip you to sherds, shouted the Kyuubi while leaking as much killing intent and chakra that he could muster up. Me worthless? Ha! Don't make me laugh. You're the one who is trapped inside me. You're the one who got his ass kicked beautifully by the Yondaime. So don't call me worthless, because you're the one who's behind bars, not me. Oh, one more thing. Worship. Tell me, why in hell should I worship someone who's more pathetic than me? Said Naruto while repressing the urge to faint. You are really testing my patience, boy, Kyuubi shouted while reforming in a bubble in the sewer. Turning to a giant miniature bubble of his head facing Naruto. Face it, boy, you are nothing without me, so I suggest you start giving me respect for your sake, boy, or I will force you to show me respect. You need me and my power to survive, so just accept it and grovel at my feet so we could live in a perfect harmony. shouted Kyuubi with a hint of amusement in his voice. After Naruto heard what the Kyuubi shouted, he moved his hand to the bubble miniature of the Kyuubi. I never needed you, not before, not now, and definitely not in the future. I will prove that to you, to the world, and more importantly to me. So I suggest return to your prison and I will return to the outside world," said Naruto as he popped the bubble. After popping the bubble, he suddenly returned to the forest where he was currently traveling, but not after hearing the last word of the Kyuubi, a faint, "This is not over," is what he heard. "Stupid fox, one day I will show you that I never needed and I will be powerful even without you," were the thoughts of Naruto as he started traveling again. 3 hours later. After traveling for 3 hours, Naruto spotted a village, a very poor village. By the looks of the village, it seemed to be pretty damaged. The houses and the buildings were torn apart, and it seems that parasites and rats seemed to come out to the cracks of the houses and buildings. After analyzing the village, he decided to just avoid going to the village, seeing as he had nothing to gain in the village. But before he turned to another direction, he felt a strong gust of wind going through his face towards the village. As he felt the wind, he seems to feel that the wind is drawing him towards the village. Not knowing what to do next and seeing as he has nothing else to lose, he followed the wind towards the village. As Naruto was walking towards the village, he could feel the wind being much stronger. This was unusual to him because he never felt the wind this strong around him. "Oh, sorry there, old man, I didn't see you there," said Naruto as he helped the old man stand up. "No worries, youngster. No harm done, but where are you going? You seem sad and lost," said the old man. "No, I'm not lost, old man, I'm just traveling around," said Naruto, trying not to remember about his banishment. "You seem too young to be traveling around. Are you a shinobi?" asked the old man. "Yes, I am," was the quick reply of Naruto. "Ah, that explain a lot of things, but why aren't you wearing a forehead protector? I thought every shinobi have one of those," asked the old man. After what the old man asked, Naruto was hesitant to answer, so he just faced the other side. "Well, it's a long story," said Naruto with a hint of sadness in his voice. After noticing the gesture of the youngster, he quickly said, "Oh, I see. So I'll be going now. Hope I could talk to you some more, but I have somewhere to go." But before he could even walk, the old man suddenly collapsed to the ground holding his stomach. "Hey, are you alright?" asked Naruto, a bit worried. "Yes, I'm boy. I just haven't eaten for a long time, boy," said the old man while holding his stomach. "Hey, what about you stop for a while so we could eat? I have more than enough to last me for a month," Naruto suggested. "No, my boy, I don't want," but before he could finish his statement, his stomach started growling again. "No, I insist. You look like you need it," said Naruto as he unpacked his food. The old man was about to argue some more, but he heard his stomach growling some more. So he just complies and eats together with the boy. "So what is it like to be living in that village?" asked Naruto, trying to start a conversation. After hearing the boy's question, he momentarily stops eating. "My boy, are you heading towards that village?" asked the old man while pointing towards the village. Naruto could only nod. "Boy, do not go to that village, it has been abandoned for 30 years. "Do you know why?" asked the old man. Naruto could only say no as he faced the village. "Boy, that place was rumored to be the home of an old shinobi that fought in the Third Great Ninja War. A shinobi with terrifying reputation and power. He was said to have killed thousands of men during the war and had never been defeated. I think his name during the war was the Black Dragon of the Wind. It is said that his power over the wind is so strong that he could create a tornado by just raising his hand. It is said that after the war he returned to his original village and butchered every human being in his village. I was traveling to that place and I just went around that village because it's rumored that his spirit is still alive and kills anyone who enters that village. So boy, don't you dare enter that village," was the warning of the old man. After the old man finished his warning, he quickly finished his meal. "Thank you, child, for the meal, and don't go inside that village, just go around it," said the old man while walking away from the child. Naruto watched the old man disappear from the distance while thinking what the old man said. That village used to be the home of a powerful shinobi, powerful and a bloodthirsty shinobi at that. A war veteran that was said to kill thousands of men and never been defeated before. A shinobi with a very powerful control over the wind. After hearing what the old man said about that village and its history, he seems to hesitate to go forward to that village. As he start to consider to just avoid going through the village, he felt another strong gust of wind hit his body heading to that village. As if the wind is telling him to go through that village. What the hell is this wind thing doing to me? Is it trying to tell something? Well, it's heading towards that abandoned village, so why not just head there? I mean, the third ninja war happened more like what 18 years ago, so I think that guy is probably dead, so why not go to his home and learn something about the guy? Maybe I could learn some of his cool jutsu while I visit his home, were the thoughts of Naruto as he headed through the village. As he stepped foot inside the village, he quickly analyzed his surroundings. The houses and the buildings were really torn down when looked by afar, but now when he looks at it by close, the houses and the buildings were really a wreck and really was a dump. Some buildings as well was already demolished. As he continued to venture further inside the village, he could see that there is no life growing inside the village. There were skeletons of animals scattered around the place. The plants were all rotten and dead all around him, and it seems that nothing has grown inside the place for years. As he continues to walk, he saw a sign that seems to reads, "The Village of Seals." What kind of village is called the Village of Seals? Naruto wonders as he continues to venture around the village. The village was really starting to creep him out. There really wasn't a sign of life anywhere he looked. The only thing he saw was death, and it really disturbs him. After reanalyzing his surrounding yet again, he decided to just get out of the village before it drives him to insanity. As he was headed towards the exit, he felt another gust of wind hit his body. What the hell is this wind again? This wind has been all around me all day. It may feel good, but it is really driving me crazy. Were the thoughts of Naruto as he headed towards the exit, but that seems to strengthen wind around him, trying to blow him off his feet. Okay, cut the wind thing already. I'll stay. Naruto thought out loud, and it seems to weaken the two breezes that is trying to lead him to somewhere. What the hell is this? All day this wind has been leading me to places that I can't understand, and as much my mind is telling me to ignore this wind, but my body, my gut, and my heart is telling me to follow this wind. Were the thoughts of Naruto as he considered between leaving the village or just follow the wind like he was doing all day. The moment that he considered his two choices, the breeze of wind is silently blowing in his entire body, trying to soothe him. The way that the wind is blowing around him did not go unnoticed by Naruto. Okay, geez, cut the wind thing already. I'll go wherever this thing is headed. Were Naruto's thoughts as follow the breeze of wind. As he follows the wind, it seems to lead him to a deeper part of the village, and the deeper he goes, the creepier it gets. He had spotted several skeletons of animals and some bones of humans as well. The smell of death was also in the air. Also, there was a thick mist that seems to envelope around him. This place is starting to scare me. Were his thoughts as he stops to a graveyard. Okay, I'm here, so what's next? He asks out loud. It was answered by another gust of wind heading his way to a sign. As he approaches the sign, it seems to be covered in dirt. He swiped the dirt all over the sign so that he could read whatever is written on it. Whoever follow the wind in this place shall enter hell like no other. If you fail to pass that hell, you will be forever part of the wind blowing for eternity. If you pass, you will gain control and power over the wind as much as you desire. Leave and you will be part of the ground which you walk upon. Keep following the wind and you may live if you pass the trials. If fail, you will face total annihilation. Naruto read out loud. After he finished reading the sign, a strong gust of wind blew apart the wind in the graveyard, showing a path leading to a cave. Okay, that was very creepy, were his thoughts as he observes how the wind blows. The wind seems to invite him to enter the graveyard. Okay, I'm out here. This place is really freaking me out, Naruto shouted as he turned his back ready to get out of that place. But as he took the first step, he remembers what the sign said. Control and power over the wind seems cool. But the sign said if I don't pass that hell it's talking about, I'll be dead. Were his thoughts as he took another step. But I have nothing else to lose anyway. I lost my friends, my dreams, and my little family. So what the hell do I have left to lose? Were his thoughts as he turns around facing the path that the wind made for him. What the hell? I really am crazy, but what the heck? I might see something cool there. So why not? Naruto said in a whisper as he set foot inside the graveyard. As he enters the graveyard, the temperature seems to drop considerably and the mist seems to envelope his feet. As he continued to walk, he seems to smell rotten bodies all around him again, only this time it is much stronger. Bones of humans were all scattered around him again, and it seems that some rotting flesh were also around him. Okay, this place is more of a boneyard rather than a graveyard. This place is really scary. Okay, remind me again why I'm here again. Naruto asked himself. His question was answered by a gust of wind passing through his face. Thanks for reminding, were his thoughts as he sweat drop. Finally, he was now face to face in the entrance of the cave. Another sign was placed there. Okay, another sign. Let's see what it says. Were his thoughts as he begins to read the sign. This is the entrance of the world of wind. Enter and you will step foot between life and death. Fail and you will sign your own death sentence. Pass and gain the power that you seek. Naruto read out loud. Great, another freaky sign, were his thoughts as he entered the cave. The cave was devoured in complete darkness. He could not see any walls. Heck, he could not even see his own hands. The only thing that is leading him inside the endless cave was a breeze of wind flowing smoothly inside the cave. It was leading him to place that he could not determine where. As he continues to walk inside the cave, he spotted a faint light in the far corner of the cave. Curious, he ran to the faint light. What he spotted was unreal. Whoa, is the only thing that Naruto could mutter out. The room was in mint condition. There were multiple weapons, books, and scrolls. There were also multiple ninja tools. The room was made of some kind of metal that has one common symbol. The symbol is a dragon covered in wind contained in a drop of water. He was confused by the room until he spotted a decaying body in the corner of the room. As he approached the body, he felt a sudden feeling in his heart like it was telling him to something. As he reached the body, he could see that he was holding a giant scroll with a letter attached to it. To his curiosity, he took the letter and begins to read it. To whoever has followed the wind inside my sacred haven, I congratulate you in surviving the village. If you ask why I put a special seal in the whole village, that seal will automatically kill whoever enters the village without a strong affinity towards the element wind, and also if they do not have a fairly strong affinity towards water. If you survive the cave as well, you have an affinity towards a rare element, shadow element. That element is said to only materialize in a shinobi once every 50 years. I should know I have the same affinity. Now whoever you are, I will tell you right now that I am death, but because I don't have any offspring nor any apprentice, whoever survives those seals mean you are my heir of my power and skills. I am Satoshi, the black dragon of the wind. That's all you need to know about me. The scroll that I am holding right now sealed all my knowledge, subconscious, and my last remaining humanity in this world. That scroll contains my mind and everything that I experience in all my life. It contains all my jutsu, all my skills, and all my knowledge in the world. It also contains my most prized possession. I do not wish to create another me in this world, for I know that I am demon that does not even deserve to live. However, I know my skills and my knowledge will be needed in this world someday. To make sure that you don't turn into me, I created a spirit that will shape you to a shinobi that is even greater than me. To access everything that I say, open the scroll that I am holding and swipe your blood on the scroll. It will analyze your blood to know your strengths and weakness, your past, and your life, so that it will know how to train you. This is my last warning and advice. My warning is, do not succumb to great power, for it will turn you to monster. My advice is simply to follow the wind without question. Yours truly, Satoshi. P.S. If you fail the trainings of the spirit, you will die. After Naruto finishing reading the letter, he was surprised. This Satoshi person seems to be a powerful shinobi if what the letter said is true, and he lock all of his skills to the scroll that he is looking at right now. It shocked him that there is way to seal someone's subconscious in a scroll. It further shocked him because that person manages to seal everything about him in a scroll. He is no making a choice whether to do what the letter is saying or just ignore it and leave, for it will be disrespectful for this Satoshi person. As he was considering his choices, the usual wind that has been leading him to places is trying to tell him something. So you're telling me to do it, huh? I've been following you all day, so why not? Said Naruto as he proceeded to open the scroll. Biting his thumb, he swiped a part of his blood inside the scroll. A moment of silence followed him after he swipes his blood inside the scroll. Suddenly a wave of light flash in front of the face of Naruto. The light seems to be blinding him. After the light died down, the scroll begins to suck every in the room, including him. Naruto was beginning to panic. First was the strange light, and now the scroll is sucking him inside of it. He was trying now to run to the exit, but that strange wind again came. Now it really said something to him. Follow me, Naruto, the wind said to Naruto. Naruto didn't know what to do, so he just followed the wind and let the scroll sucked him into the unknown. He was beginning to lose consciousness as he was being sucked inside the scroll. Then suddenly he saw the same old man that he bumped earlier. You made the right choice. Child of prophecy, was all the old man said, and was all that he heard as he disappeared before his eyes and as his world turned black. Alright, that's the first chapter. It's still similar to the original. I'm not going to switch things up until Naruto's training is over. Naruto had just woken up after going into the portal. He noticed he was resting in a small room in the middle of a very large room. The entire room was covered in a white mist that seems to emit a strange aura around him. The mist covers the entire room except for two things. First is his bed, and second is a table beside the bed. Looking at the table, he found a letter with his name written on it. He then proceeds to read the letter. Dear child, if you're reading this, then it means you're already awake. Follow the dragonfly beside this letter. The dragonfly will lead you to where you will meet your trainer. Hurry boy, I don't like waiting too long. After finishing the letter, he searched for the dragonfly but saw nothing. Suddenly a dragonfly came in front of him. What the hell? Screamed Naruto as he jumped several feet backward. Boy, don't be scared, just follow me and your hell will begin. Said the dragonfly as he leads Naruto out of the room. Naruto dumbly followed the dragonfly, not knowing what to do. As he followed the dragonfly, he noticed that the room he was in was like a prison cell, which disturbed him very much. Heading out of the room, Naruto saw a small corridor, and he could also see an opening the end of the corridor that they reached very quickly. After exiting the corridor, he saw a man sitting in a rock. Boy, go to him, was the last word of the dragonfly as he disappeared. Naruto then approached the man sitting in the rock with caution. He could feel a strange aura in that man that was similar to the Kyuubi. The man was wearing a trench coat, so he could not see the face or the body of that man. Boy, you really have knack for being startled, said the man with a voice that seems to remind him of Gaara, but it has more warmth in it. Well, the last thing I know is. But he was quickly interrupted by the man. Yes kid, I know why you're here. I could say your life is such a pity. But alas, you are an idiot as well. Chuckled the man. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Screamed Naruto. Boy, the scroll you open helps me scan your memories, heart, mind, personality, attitude and skills, and my only comment to you is that you are a complete idiot. Said the man. Naruto was angry at what the man said and attacked him. This resulted in his head being slammed to the ground hard. Boy, my first lesson: avoid fighting people who are stronger than you and you'll live longer, I guarantee it, said the man while he held his neck. Naruto was surprised by the man's speed. The man seemed to move faster than Kakashi or Guy and even Jiraiya. What did he mean first lesson? Naruto asked himself. What do you mean first lesson? Asked Naruto. The man sighed. Man, you really are stupid and clueless. This only further angered Naruto. Boy, if you remember the letter Satoshi-sama said that he left a spirit with all his knowledge, all his experience, and all of his skill. I am that spirit and I will be the one teaching you, his heir, all you need to know. Especially once you are out in this scroll dimension, you have a lot of enemies that are going to try to kill you. 9S class shinobi and an entire village, your life is full of shit. Now listen to me so we could start your training, boy. Lecture the man. That calms Naruto down. He remembers what the content of the letter is, especially the spirit part. So you're the spirit, huh? Naruto asked dumbly. Yes boy, I am, and because you seem curious before we start you can ask me anything, said the man. Okay, could you first let go of my neck? Said Naruto. Oh, sorry for that, as he lets go of his neck. First thing first, where are we? Asked Naruto. We are in a scroll dimension. It is an advanced sealing jutsu that could create a landscape in a scroll. This place also could block the influence of the Kyuubi. Answer Kuroikongo. Who are you? My name is Kuroikongo, Black Diamond. Weird name. So what kind of spirit are you? You will find that out later. That seemed to irritate Naruto even further, but he tried to hide it to the best of his abilities because he doesn't want to be choked again. Why did that scroll choose me? That question brought silence between the two for several minutes. Naruto didn't want to say anything because he felt that one wrong word would result in a very painful experience. I knew sooner or later you'll ask that question, but not this early. You want to know the answer, kid? Which Naruto nodded. Look below you, boy, said Kuroikongo, which Naruto obliged. What Naruto saw completely surprised him. The ground beneath him suddenly changed to a portrait of a man. The man had long black hair, silver eyes that seemed to be cold, and his face seems to be serious. He was wearing a black trench coat that covers his whole body and wielding a large and black zanbato. The zanbato seems to be made out of several large diamonds. Boy, the man is Satoshi-sama, my master and my creator, said Kuroikongo. Naruto was analyzing the portrait that he was looking at. What kind of shinobi was he? Asked Naruto. I will show you his life and then that question of yours, you will answer yourself, said Kuroikongo. Then he raises his hand, then multiple images flash through Naruto's eyes. Naruto could not believe what he was witnessing right now. He was witnessing a life of a powerful shinobi right before his eyes. The man's skill was unbelievable. His control over his element was inhuman. He could control the wind like it was part of his body. Also, the control over his sub-element was also amazing. But the thing that amazes him more was how he uses his sword and his weapons. He was using two swords and one spear at the same time. The first sword was the sword that he was holding in the portrait. It was as large as him, but he could still control it masterfully. The second sword was a double-bladed sword. That sword was as tall as his first sword, but he could use it so well. His third weapon was a spear. The spear seems to resemble a trident. He was controlling the spear by spinning it in his body. Watching him perform that sword dance was amazing to watch. It was beautifully executed but also deadly. But the thing that made him sad and angry was the way they treated him when he was old. His very own village attempted to kill when he was getting old. That was the reason why there were multiple bones of people in the village. When he was betrayed, he protected himself against all the shinobis of his village. He managed to kill them all, but with a prize. He was severely wounded multiple times. So the last thing he did was to make sure that he was remembered. He put a seal in the entire village that would kill anyone without his requirement he needs to pass his skills. He also seals all his knowledge, his scroll, and his double-bladed sword. The other sword, on the other hand, was sealed in the scroll by a strange ritual. After the sealing, he quickly embraces the scroll while writing the letter. Then it went black. So boy, after watching his life, what kind of shinobi do you think he is? Asked Kuroikongo. He was an honorable man. An amazing shinobi and an even more amazing person. Answer Naruto. You are correct, boy. He was a fantastic warrior, a good friend, and a good master. He treated everyone with respect even if they don't give a shit about him, said Kuroikongo. Now boy, to answer your second question, remember the sword that he was wielding in the portrait? Naruto nodded. That was me boy, said Kuroikongo. How can that be you? Said the surprised Naruto. Boy, do you know what a sentient sword? Asked Kuroikongo. Naruto shook his head no. A sentient sword is a type of sword that has a spirit, a soul and a mind. A sentient sword chooses who its master is. Normally a sentient sword is created by a powerful being, mostly a sage, a spirit, or a tail beast. But my master is very special. He was the one who had created me. Explained Kuroikongo. How did he create you? Asked an astonished Naruto. He had a god-like affinity toward the wind. It was so strong that it created a wind spirit. That spirit was me. Answer Kuroikongo. Wait. You mean? Yes boy, you have the same god-like affinity towards the wind as my former master, to the extent that you created a wind spirit in your subconscious. Now boy, before we start, I'm going to tell you what we are going to work on. We are going to work on ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu, and before you ask, I'm going to explain why you're learning those specific skills. First is ninjutsu. It is the best way for you to control your element, and by the looks of things in your memory and by the things I see in you, you have untapped potential in ninjutsu. Second is kenjutsu. It is the second best way for you to control your element and can enhance your ninjutsu by tenfold if you know how to use a sword properly. And lastly, fuinjutsu. It is the best way to contain your pet inside you. It can also be the best way to contain some material that you will need in your journey. And the most important thing in why you are going to learn about seals is because if you become proficient with seals, you could help you in your battles and training. Now boy, shall we start your training or what? Asked Kuroikongo. Yes, let's start, said Naruto with much excitement in his voice. He could not wait to learn those ninja arts. After hearing Naruto's answer, he snaps his fingers. The effect is instantaneous. The entire field was changed. The corridor changed into a valley, with several land formations surrounding the entire valley. Boy, first we are going to work in your psyche and your chakra control. Your psyche because your body can't survive some A-class and S-class jutsu, and chakra control because you just really suck in controlling your chakra, that you could not perform any higher jutsu or any jutsu that requires better chakra control, and more importantly, you just suck at controlling your very enormous chakra. Then we are going to follow it up by taijutsu and genjutsu. After those we are going to work on those three ninja art that I mentioned. Any questions? Said Kuroikongo to Naruto. Yes. I have one. I can understand the psyche and chakra control stuff. Scowling at the mention of his horrible chakra control, but why do I have to learn taijutsu and genjutsu? I thought only ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu are the things that you are going to teach me. Asked Naruto. That question earned Naruto a light punch to the gut. Boy, if I only teach you those three, you will have an enormous weakness in those two. Weaknesses in the ninja world means death. Any more stupid question? Naruto, even though still rather upset by the punch he received, just shut his mouth. Good. Now before we start, first create 20 shadow clones, which Naruto dumbly created the shadow clones. Now that you created the shadow clone, may the original step forward. The original Naruto then suddenly stepped forward. Boy, listen to me now. I will tell you now your first warm-up exercise. Naruto now was listening to him very carefully. First you must run 100 laps around the valley, followed by 150 push-ups, then 200 sit-ups, and lastly 100 squat thrust. After you finish, seek me out for another workout. Instruct Kuroikongo. After hearing what Kuroikongo said, Naruto's face had turned ghostly pale. What he was about to do seemed like torture. But his reaction didn't go unnoticed by his trainer. I know boy that what you're about to do seems like torture, but we need to make you stronger as fast as possible, because by the things I saw in your memory, we only have at least 3 to 4 years to make you powerful to take on a Kage level shinobi. You have the potential to surpass my master and the leaders you called Hokage, but you need to experience hell first to gain the power and strength you need. Power and strength comes from hard work, training, and determination. There are no shortcuts for gaining power and strength. Do you understand me boy? Lecture Kuroikongo. What Kuroikogo said actually calmed him, made him feel relief, but he still have one question in mind. Okay, now I understand this warm-up exercise that you want me to do, but why did you ask me to create 20 shadow clones? Asked Naruto. The answer is very simple. We are going to start your lesson in Fuinjutsu. My master took 3 years in becoming a seal master, so I'm going to need 20 of you to even start with the basic. Answer Kuroikogo. Wait a minute. Do you need me for that? Asked Naruto. Boy, all I need is 20 shadow clones. You, the original, just need to do all the physical stuff of the training and your clones will handle all the things that involve a book, said Kuroikogo. How the hell could I learn about sealing if my clones learn it and not me? Asked a confused Naruto. Kuroikogo stared at the boy with disbelief. How could this boy not know the secret of his most favorite jutsu? He had practically used it more than 500 times, more than his master had used it in his lifetime. But yet these boys haven't discovered the secret of that jutsus. Then and there he knew that it was going to be a long 3 years. Boy, don't tell me you hadn't discovered the secret of the shadow clone jutsu. No, I haven't. What do you mean secret of the shadow clone? Naruto asked dumbly. To make a long story short, if you dispel a shadow clone, all its knowledge and its experience will return to the original. I can't believe you hadn't noticed that. You have been using this jutsu a lot, and I mean a lot, said Kuroikogo. I used it all the time and didn't notice it, said Naruto looking embarrassed. Just start running before I beat the shit out of you. Which Naruto obediently obeyed. That was the start of his training. Every morning, he was forced to wake up at 3 in the morning. He started with 200 laps around the valley, then 150 push-ups, followed by 200 sit-ups, followed by 200 sit-ups, and lastly 100 squat thrust. After those so-called warm-ups, Kuroikogo turned the valley into a huge gym complete with weights. He is instructed to have at least 5-minute workout in each workout gizmos and weight, which is a total 10-hour workout. After the physical training, which took him all afternoon, he went to the chakra control training. That training was a bit more difficult for Naruto because of the unbalance of his and the fox chakra, but it was quickly resolved. The solution was to temporarily lock the fox chakra away so it could not influence him, or to throw his chakra control out of control. The first chakra control exercise is, as usual, the tree climbing exercise, but with an odd twist. While climbing the tree, he was wearing a special kind of weights. Those weights weighed 100 pounds, and if he puts more chakra to his feet rather than the right amount for the exercise, the weight will add another 20 pounds depending on how much chakra he adds to his feet. Nonetheless, Naruto had managed to complete those exercises by the end of the day. Even though the physical exercises took a lot out of him. Thanks to his inhuman stamina, he had managed to complete the improved chakra control exercise after 500 tries and after 500 times falling in his. At night he was tested in seals, which he found very interesting. He didn't know that studying seals would be so much fun and easy for him. Even though technically it was his clones learning those seals. He was always tested, which he always perfected, shocking Kuroikogo. Every 3 days his training regime always intensified. Those warm-up exercise had gotten more intense. Kuroikogo added weight to his ankles, weighing 50 pounds in each limps and adding 10 more rounds in each exercise. Also, the gym that he was using had tripled the weight to all the barbells that he was using. Also, he added gymnastics and aerobics to his regime. The chakra control exercise also intensified tenfolds. He now has to wear those special weights that were slightly enhanced to add 100 pounds if he puts too much chakra to an exercise. It was difficult for him not to drown in the lake that Kuroikogo create for him, and also difficult for him not to fall in a cliff that he was climbing. Also, the waterfall climbing and the kunai and senbon needle balancing exercise was like hell impossible to him, especially the waterfall climbing exercise. He always fall to his because of the weights. Kuroikogo was impressed by the boy. Truth be told, he was waiting for Naruto to complain to him about the exercises that he was giving to him, because he knows that it seems too much for the young boy, but it never came, not a single complaint. He just executed all the exercise that he gave him. It surprised him because in his memories he seldom complains to that lazy sensei he was having in Konoha. The moment he asked why he wasn't complaining, his answer completely shocked him. You are the only one who gives the time and day to actually train me. If I complain about the training you're giving me, it means that I'm not thankful, and I am very thankful, Master, was his simple answer. That impressed him, and at that moment decides to devote himself to training him with all of his master's knowledge that was left for him, especially for him. After 4 months he had finally perfected the chakra control exercises. His chakra control now was almost as good as an Anbu. Also, the result of the physical was also visible. His small body had turned very muscular, not like those bodybuilders but still very big for his age. He also grown a couple of inch because all the food that he was eating was all healthy and no ramen, which he almost complained about. After those 4 months and seeing the result of the first part of his training, Kuroikongo decided to go to second stage of his training, which is taijutsu and genjutsu. Kuroikongo started teaching Naruto his master's taijutsu style, Dance of the Diamond Dragon, which focuses on 2 principles. The first principle of the style is to move in high speed while delivering heavy kicks and punches. The second principle is to use the force of your opponent against him. The thing now that they have to work on now is speed, strength, and accuracy. Naruto had surprised Kuroikongo yet again. He had managed to learn the basics of the style in under a week. That was rather surprising because his master took 2 years to complete that style. Even though he was using 100 shadow clones while learning the basic, it is still a remarkable thing to accomplish. Amazing, this kid is just purely amazing. He manages to increase his speed and accuracy in a short period of time to learn the basic of the style. He even managed to learn some of its stances. He might learn this style faster than have predicted. Were the thoughts of Kuroikongo as he watches Naruto performing some katas. The next part of his training, or as Naruto likes to call it, a pain in the head and a major pain in the, is genjutsu. This is the most difficult part in Naruto's training because he is not a genjutsu type, and Naruto and Kuroikongo knows it. Knowing that it's impossible for Naruto to cast a high-ranking genjutsu even if his life depend on it. Kuroikongo only focused his training on casting low-level genjutsu and dispelling high-level genjutsu, but even that task seemed very difficult for Naruto. He really wasn't a genjutsu type, so even a small task that involved genjutsu was difficult for him to accomplish. But even that problem was short-lived. They solved that problem by adding more chakra control exercises and meditations in his regime, which greatly improved his focus and his ever-improving chakra control. In addition, it also improved the concentration he needed to learn how to dispel any high or low genjutsu, but for casting any genjutsu, well, that was another different story. For casting genjutsu he still needed a lot more control and a hell of a lot of focus. It took him 5 months to actually get used in even using the simplest genjutsu. But for Kuroikongo, his skill in genjutsu is proficient enough to actually use in a battle. It took 1 year to finish the first and second part of his training. Now it's time to move on to the main part of his training, namely ninjutsu and kenjutsu. Boy, come, Kuroikongo called Naruto in the middle of his training. What is it, master? Asked Naruto. Boy, your progress is a lot quicker than I have ever expected. In a year you had mastered my master's taijutsu style in less than 3 months. Your skills in genjutsu may not be the best, but it's still proficient enough to actually use in a battle. Also, your fuinjutsu training is going very well to the extent that you might be considering as a fuinjutsu genius. With that, we are going to start your ninjutsu training, said Kuroikongo. Naruto was now excited. He always wanted to learn more about ninjutsu. Now his dream is about to come true and he is very excited. So what's first, master? Asked Naruto. First we are going to work on your elemental manipulation. You're not going to ask what's elemental manipulation is, are you? Asked Kuroikongo. Master, I already know what elemental manipulation. Elemental manipulation is manipulating one's chakra to become an element. Every shinobi has at least one affinity towards an element. The most common elements are fire, wind, earth, lightning and water. There are also some sub-elements that could only achieve by combining some of the basic elements. Am I right, master? Asked Naruto. You are correct, boy. May I ask, how did you learn the meaning of elemental manipulation? Asked Kuroikongo. Master, when my clones are studying about seals, I send some clones to your library to learn other things like philosophy, anatomy, and history. I figure some knowledge will also help me against my enemies once I'm out in this scroll dimension. One of my clones found a book and scrolls about elemental manipulation and decided to read it. That's the reason why I learned about elemental manipulation. Naruto explained. Kuroikongo is now officially impressed. The boy manages to learn some knowledge that will truly help him in the outside world without even him ordering him to do it. Now this part of his training will be a walk in the park. Impressive. Now to get back to the main topic. So if you read the book about elemental manipulation, you know what you're going to do next, am I correct? Asked Kuroikongo. Naruto nodded. Kuroikongo then snapped his fingers and the effect is instantaneous. The valley that they were currently residing turned into a forest. This boy will be your training ground for your elemental manipulation. There are trees and waterfalls for your wind manipulation training. There is also giant lake over there for your water manipulation training. Lastly, there is also a lot of shadows here that you may use in your shadow manipulation training. Any questions, boy? Said Kuroikongo. Yes, just one. I know both exercise about wind and water manipulation, but I know nothing about the exercises about shadow manipulation. Said Naruto. After hearing what Naruto said, Kuroikongo threw him a scroll. All the exercises about shadow manipulation are all in that scroll. So I suggest you start right now. And so it begins his training with his elements. He had first created 600 clones and then assigning 200 clones in each exercise. He and 200 of the clone are the ones going to perform the wind manipulation exercise, 200 of the clones are doing the water manipulation exercise, and another 200 of the clones are doing the shadow manipulation exercise. Naruto and his clone had started doing their respective exercises. The original Naruto and 200 of the clones had begun trying to cut a leaf in half because that is the first step in wind manipulation. Another 200 clones had started trying to create a small current in the nearest lake, and the remaining 200 clones begun reading the first step in shadow manipulation. The scroll said that there are 3 steps in shadow manipulation. The first step in shadow manipulation is to make your shadow move. The second step is to expand the shadow. The third and last step is to make your shadow rise from the ground and materialize. After finishing the scroll, the 200 clones began the first exercise. Now his daily routine has changed. His physical and chakra control training was now cut in half and only occupied the morning, and all afternoon and evening was his elemental manipulation training. His elemental manipulation training had progress in 3 months and the result was outstanding. By using 600 clones and 200 clones in each elemental exercises, he had accomplished what a normal ninja would need several years to accomplish. He had mastered his affinities in less than 3 months. He had reached mastery of each his affinities in under a short amount of time, and his mastery and control over his affinities is so good that he modified his taijutsu style using his 3 affinities and created 3 new taijutsu styles. He modified Dance of the Diamond Dragon to create the Dance of the Elemental Dragons. The Dance of the Elemental Dragons utilizes each of his elemental affinities to create 3 katas: the Dance of the Crystal Wind, the Dance of the Crimson Ocean, and the Dance of the Hell Shadow. Each of those katas has its own specific uses. The Dance of the Crystal Wind is used for offense. The wind's cutting ability is the best way to deliver heavy and lethal damage. The Dance of the Crimson Ocean is used for defense. The water's ability of form modification is perfect in blocking heavy damage. The Dance of the Hell Shadow, on the other hand, is used for counter-attacks and capture. The Shadow's ability to capture the enemy is the best way to set up a counter-attack. If all those katas are combined, the Dance of the Elemental Dragons is going to be a dangerous fighting style. The Dance of the Elemental Dragons is Naruto's original taijutsu style. He learned that each of his elements has a specific specialty in battle. The water element is an element which he could be modified to any shape he wants, making it best for defense. Also, water could also be used for drowning the opponents or trapping them in a large area. The shadow element, on the other hand, has the ability to manipulate your shadow or any shadow that he touches into a weapon that is suited for either capturing or attacking in different areas. The shadows also have the ability to create voids which he could either to teleport himself in a short distance or to spy on the enemy. The wind, on the other, is a different element for Naruto. The wind is his favorite element even when he was in Konoha. The wind for him could do those things that water and shadow could do and more. The wind is an unpredictable element. The wind has many uses. It could be used for cutting, or could be used as explosive, or it could also be used to carry anything in the sky, or it could form cyclones, tornadoes, or anything his heart desire. The possibilities is endless for this element. Thinking of the possibilities and the capabilities of the wind further excites Naruto. The moment Naruto finished his elemental manipulation training, his master has given him access to the jutsu library. The jutsu library is full of jutsu that was bordering from C class to S class jutsu. Most of the jutsu in the library are water and wind based, but there are also some of the elements like lightning, earth, and fire. But the thing that Naruto found it strange was that there are only handfuls of shadow based jutsu. He asks his master why, and his master answer is, there are only handfuls of shadow-based jutsu because a person who has a shadow affinity only comes along once every 50 years. So there are only few jutsus which is shadow base. The Nara clan can't be considered having a shadow affinity because they don't even know the full potential of the shadow element. Hearing what his master said gave him an idea. The idea was to create his own jutsu. Not for just shadow but also his wind and water element. With that said, he only picks out a few jutsu from the jutsu library and began studying them and slowly trying to master them, and after mastering them trying to create a new version of the jutsu. That has been his routine for 3 months, with the help of his clone, learning a new jutsu and creating 3 or more versions of that jutsu. In less than 3 months he has learned many jutsu and created quite a few of his own. His creations were all A class and S class based on the jutsu that he had already mastered. But his real masterpiece was the Rasengan. Yes, his best work and his greatest creation was modifying and improving the Rasengan. He master once said that the Rasengan is a jutsu with limitless potential, and truth be told, Naruto agreed with him 100%. The Rasengan was his first offensive jutsu and his signature ninjutsu. That was why he had improved it as much as possible. He had improved the Rasengan by adding his affinities to the jutsu. The effect was incredible. It had tripled the power of the Rasengan, but strangely that wasn't enough for him. So not yet satisfied, he decided to create other version of the Rasengan. In 3 months he has successfully created 4 Rasengan, all of them wind base, and he was aiming in creating 9 more versions. The reason why all of them are wind base was because his master observation of the Rasengan was that it was perfect for wind based jutsu. Another 3 months had passed, and now Naruto has an impressive ninjutsu library and had created many original jutsu and created a total of 13 versions of the Rasengan, all bordering from S class to SS class, and 2 of those versions are SSS class, designed to destroy large area in one hit, and Naruto is proud of his creation and also his master was proud of him. Kuroikongo was impressed. Not just because he mastered his elemental manipulation training in record time, but also because his determination in creating and improving his jutsu. He was right, the kid was a genius when it comes to ninjutsu. Those jutsus that he created was a sentiment to what he said. Now the kid's level might be compared to a Kage. His chakra capacity surpassed some of the Kages his master and him have faced in the past. His skill level is practically Kage level as well, with a mastery of his element, a very high level in ninjutsu, mastery in fuinjutsu, a high level in taijutsu, and a mid-level in genjutsu. Yes, the kid could be a Kage right now, but there is one more thing that the kid need to learn, and that was his specialty. Boy, leave your clones to do your ninjutsu. As they walk far from the clones, Naruto noticed that the appearance of the field is changing. The forest was changed into a graveyard full of swords. Naruto is now trying to decipher what is the meaning of this. But suddenly he felt a sword was about to hit him, so he jumped a couple of feet. After avoiding the sword, he glared at the one who almost cut him in half. It shocked him to see that it was his master holding a sword that was made out of black diamonds. "Boy, your kenjutsu training begins now," he said as he stand and look at his student. "Your training in the other arts has already progress. You're a genius when it comes to elemental manipulation, ninjutsu, and fuinjutsu. You have some talent in taijutsu. Your only weak point is your genjutsu. You could not cast a high-level genjutsu, but at least you could dispel them. Now let's begin the final step of your training, my favorite, kenjutsu." Kuroikongo explained. "Master, I have a question. Why attack me if I'm learning kenjutsu?" Naruto asked. The question was answered in another sideward slash which Naruto narrowly avoided. "The reason why I'm attacking with a sword is because it is the fastest way for you to learn kenjutsu. Now boy, pick up a sword and let's start the training, or do you want me to massacre you before you pick out a sword?" said Kuroikongo, shouting the last part. Naruto, hearing his master, grabbed the nearest sword that he could see and prepared in a basic sword stance. His master, seeing that, begun his attack. He charged at Naruto in a speed that was as fast as Rock Lee when he opened the gates, then hitting Naruto with a powerful downward thrust which Naruto blocked with his sword. Naruto was shocked by the power of that thrust. It felt like being hit by a 2-ton boulder. But that didn't stop his master. He quickly followed it up by a combination of slashes and stabs in which Naruto narrowly blocked or dodged. "First lesson: always listen to your sword," he said after thrusts. He then continues his lecture and onslaught. "A sword is not an ordinary weapon, it has a heart and you must listen to it to become a kenjutsu master." After finishing what he said, he grabs the nearest sword and tried to slash Naruto's midsection, but Naruto had managed to block, but the result was both their swords being shattered. After his sword being shattered, he quickly jumps a couple of feet and grabs the nearest sword he could see, then returning to a defensive stance. His master, seeing that Naruto was now armed, quickly charged. He tried another slash in Naruto's head, but Naruto blocked it with his sword, and grabbing the nearest sword, his master tried another thrust, this aiming to his feet, but Naruto, noticing the thrust, quickly jumped another couple of feet away from his master. Lesson 2: always study your terrain and make it your ally. After finishing what he said, he charged at Naruto again. "The hell with this, I'm being manhandled. If this continued, I'll be slaughtered for sure. There is only one way for me to turn the tide, and that." As he thought of an idea, he grabbed nearby sword, "is to attack myself." He then charged at his master with all his strength. Smart move, but it's not enough. He then met with Naruto in an exchange of slash and thrust in midair. As they continued to trade blows, Naruto was beginning to weaken because of the strong attacks that his master was giving him. His master, noticing it, grinned. "It's time for a little dance." At that, though, he began to do a complicated series of thrust and slicing moves. Naruto, seeing those moves, tried to create distance between him and his master, but it was no avail. He was finding it difficult to defend in the barrage of attacks. Then suddenly he felt a strong hit in the gut. Looking at the source of pain, he saw the fist of his master connecting to his gut, and it was followed by an uppercut and then a swift kick to the gut, sending him a couple of feet away from him. Lesson number 3: don't focus on the sword, also focus at the body of your opponent. With that said, Naruto picked up another sword and charged at his master again. That has been their new routine. Naruto will create 1,000 clones that will work on his chakra control exercise, his ninjutsu training, and his study in fuinjutsu. The original Naruto, on the other hand, will be trained by Kuroikongo in kenjutsu. Naruto's training in kenjutsu only consists in one exercise, and that's not to get killed by his master while learning the basic strikes and stances of kenjutsu. Easy, right? Well, not exactly. His master's styles is wild and dangerous, and count to that his masterful control over that giant sword of his. It was difficult for him not just to get beheaded by his master, but also trying to attack his master as well. But because Naruto is a fast learner and he could easily adapt to anything, he had managed to figure out his master style in a week, and that caused him less injuries after the end of their session. But still, it was still difficult for him to actually think of a counter, but still it was an improvement. It took him a month to create an original dance of his own to counter his master's wild style, but still his master's experience and masterful control over his large sword is still biting him in the. He was still trying to figure out how to counter that, but for now he has a large sword to dodge. Naruto was seriously exhausted and breathing heavily with bruises and cuts all over his body. His clothes had been almost torn up, he had blood all over his body, but yet had a smile on his face. His 4-year training had just been completed. After learning all the jutsus and technique he could learn in the past 4 years, he had decided to try and learn how to control the Kyuubi's chakra. He first had to change the seal his father created. Instead of the Kyuubi still controlling its chakra and sending his chakra to Naruto anytime it wanted, Naruto's new seal had cut off the Kyuubi from its chakra. It had not been easy. Even after he had applied his new seal, the Kyuubi had proved while he was the strongest of all Biju, even without its chakra it had almost killed him. Had it not been from the 4 years intense training he took, he was not sure if he would have survived, but now he had full control of the chakra while he locked up the Kyuubi in a cage until it cooled down. Naruto was interrupted from his thoughts by a voice. "Congratulations Naruto-kun, you were able to control the Kyuubi without any help," said a female voice as Naruto turned around and saw a pretty red-haired woman in front of him with purple eyes. For some reason he felt that he should know the woman. "I must say you've definitely gotten strong," another voice added as Naruto looked behind the woman and saw a face that he never thought he would see as long as he lived. There was his father, the 4th Hokage, in all his glory. As Naruto looked at the man, different emotions ran through him: shock, confusion, and finally anger took over him. "You!" he roared as he launched at the man in speeds that shocked both parents as he developed a devastating punch to his father's stomach that sent the man doubled over. "Do you know how much trouble and pain you put me though, and what kind of father seals a demon into their own son minutes after they're born?" Naruto roared as tears were starting to fall from his eyes as he tried to approach him again, as he saw that chains had erupted out of nowhere and held him to the ground as he saw that it came from the red-haired lady. "Naruto, I know you are angry, but please calm down and let us explain everything," the woman said in a motherly tone that surprisingly calmed the blonde boy down. "Sorry if I'm being rude, but whom are you?" Naruto asked confusingly. "Minato-kun, can you believe it, our own son doesn't recognize me," the red-haired lady said as she threatened to spill fake tears, as Minato could only smile. While Naruto was shocked as he did not know that the woman before him was his own mother. "Naruto, I know you are mad at me for sealing the Kyuubi in you, but believe me, I had no choice," Minato explained as Kushina released the chains and pulled him up. "Before you say anything, I want to explain everything that happened that night," Minato said. "I am not going to go into details about what happened the night of the sealing because I don't want to spoil it for people who have not read up to the manga yet." By the time his father was done, Naruto was shocked to find out everything that happened and why his father sealed the Kyuubi into him. "Wait, so you mean Madara Uchiha is still alive? How that is possible?" Naruto asked, genuinely confused since the man was supposed to be well over 100 years old. "I don't know Naruto, but I guess the Sharingan has more abilities than most people believed," his father said. "After everything that happened, do you still hate us?" Kushina asked in a surprisingly quiet voice. "At first I was mad when I found out you sealed the Kyuubi in me. I never hated you. Yeah, I was a little mad when I found out you sealing the Kyuubi in me, but I never hated you, and after finding out the whole truth behind the attack, I can't be mad at you. I'm sorry for hitting you and saying all those things, Dad," Naruto said as tears was spilling from his eyes and his mom hugged him. He then noticed that she started to fade along with his dad. "Looks like we have to go, Naruto. We didn't put that much chakra into the seal. I'm even surprised we lasted this long," Minato explained as he went up to his son and hugged him while ruffling his hair. "Before we leave," Minato said as he pushed 2 of his fingers on Naruto's forehead, "I transferred my memories from my battle with Madara and all my techniques into you. I have a feeling you are going to need it when you are ready to fight Akatsuki." He explained to Naruto. Bye mom dad, thanks for everything, Naruto said. Don't forget we will always love you. His mom said as she was crying. He was crying freely while his parents both smiled at him and they disappeared while Naruto was left alone. When he woke up he found a headache coming on as he sat up and saw Kuroikongo sitting on a rock. I take it was a success. The spirit said to his apprentice. Yes master, the seal worked to perfection and I was able to take the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto said in a saddened voice since he knew that his training was over and he'll have to destroy the portal by leaving. Do you have everything you need? The spirit asked. He knew why the boy was sighed but there was nothing he could do about it. This was meant to happen. Yes master, I do and thank you for everything. Naruto said as he bowed to the spirit who nodded his head in return and watched as Naruto exited the portal and ran as fast as he could through the destroyed village that he passed 4 years ago. When he got to a safe distance from the village he saw the explosion and the village disappeared, never leaving a trace that it had been there before. It had been 2 weeks since he finished his training and was in a village in the border of the land of lightning and tea country. When he got out of the portal the first thing he did was get new shinobi attire. He now wore black shinobi pants with a black long-sleeved shirt and a black flak jacket like the ones the Konoha Junin wore. He had black shinobi sandals and then he wore a battle cloak like the one his father had, except this one was light orange and had black flames at the bottom and the sleeves. He knew it had been 4 years since he left, so he had to create a spy network like Jiraiya to find out what has been going on since he left. He had just sent his blood clones all over the elemental nations to create his spy network. These clones were his latest and greatest creations so far. Using seals he created them with his blood and chakra. The difference between these clones and shadow clones was that they could only be killed by a fatal injury and they had minds of their own and were well versed in any areas from medicine to so it would be easy to infiltrate anywhere as a spy. The seal also changed their blood so they couldn't be linked to each other if they were ever found out. The best part about it was like a shadow clone, whatever memory they gained he could too, but using the seal he only got the memories and information he wanted. He could find out what was going on around the elemental nations within an hour. He had just found a place to eat since it was only a bar that could open this late at night and was currently drinking sake while thinking about where he could find a hotel to stay for the night when he was interrupted from his thoughts. Excuse me, is this seat taken? A feminine voice asked him as Naruto looked up and was surprised to see a very beautiful woman who stood at 5 feet 8 inches and wore a blue kimono that had white flowers. She had light aqua blue hair that looked like it was mixed with a little green with emerald eyes, a heart-shaped face, an hourglass figure and chest size that was AC bordering D cup. No, there is no one seating there. Naruto answered. Thank you, she said as she took her seat as Naruto looked around and noticed over half the guys in the bar were looking at her with lust in their eyes and the ones who weren't were flirting with waitresses or some other women in the bar. Looks like you have a lot of admirers. Naruto said with a small smirk on his lips. It looks like I do, but most men are perverts anyway. The woman said with a sly smile on her face. Then why did you sit next to me? I hope you are not trying to use me as some sort of protector against them, are you? Naruto asked with a small pout on his face. This had her giggling. Of course not, I could tell that you were not a pervert just by looking at you. She said with a small smirk. That must be quite the talent you have. Naruto added. Of course it's part of a woman's intuition. She said with a smile. Naruto and the young woman chatted about everything. He found out her name was Tamao Ichinos, who was a business trader from Water Country and owned businesses in different parts of the elemental nations, which made her pretty wealthy for someone her age. It seemed both her parents were also rich traders, and after they had passed away she inherited their business and was a successful woman. Naruto and Tamao talked for about 3 hours when they found out the bar was about to close. He was going to bid her farewell and find a hotel to stay when he saw she was having trouble standing up. It was obvious she had too much to drink and couldn't walk straight, so Naruto offered to take her back to her place, which she accepted. They had just walked out of the bar when they found themselves surrounded by a couple of thugs. Naruto could only sigh as he saw that Tamao was a little frightened. Well, look what we have here, boys. One of the thugs exclaimed. What a babe, she's obviously too much for you, brat, why don't you beat it before we hurt you? Another one said in a voice. And drop all your valuables while you are at it if you know what's good for you. Another exclaimed. Deciding to get this over with it, he made a couple of shadow clones and had them deal with the thugs while he and Tamao left. Thank you for escorting me, Naruto-kun, Tamao said. Naruto grinned as he scratched the back of his head. It was nothing really, I was just doing the right thing. Before he knew what happened, she had kissed him on the lips. He was frozen in shock since this was the first time he had ever kissed a woman. Thankfully, instincts began to take over as he started kissing back. As Tamao moaned into the kiss, Naruto licked her lips, asking permission to enter. When she opened her mouth to grant him entrance, and he tentatively probed her mouth. Wrapping his arms around Tamao, he became more emboldened as she moaned into his kiss. They soon found themselves in her room as they continued to deepen their kiss. She smiled knowingly and pushed him onto the bed, where he landed on his back. She gave him a sultry smile before she took off her kimono to reveal a lacy, sky blue bra, and he suppressed a nosebleed, but he couldn't suppress the bulge in his pants. Naruto began to work on her bra, and it was luckily strapped on at the front, so he popped it open with ease and stared down at her bountiful D-cup with an indelible hunger and fire in his eyes. She giggled at the dazed expression before it went downright primal, and he attacked her lips again while his hands began to rub her tits sensually. His hands were rough, but it felt good against her porcelain delicate skin as the warmth in her belly grew exponentially. She moaned again as their tongues began to wrestle before he abandoned her mouth to kiss down her jaw. His hands began to tease her, and she whimpered every time his thumb gently passed over her sensitive nipples. His hot tongue began to drag down her neck and across her collarbone as he left open-mouthed kisses down her body. Her hands were by no means idle as they began to rub him through his pants. She could feel the hardness beneath, and he groaned into her neck as she continued to rub his length. She smirked at how much that could affect him until she felt him kissing around the area above her heaving chest. Her face was flushed red and her breaths became short and turned into pants at the overwhelming sensations that began to erupt around her chest area. Tamao moaned as his mouth latched onto her right nipple and his right hand caressing her. His left hand had moved down to her hip and began to fiddle with the waistband of her shorts. His hand began to be more proactive towards her nipple as his hands began to caress the tiny nub. While 3 of his fingers rubbed her fleshy, he used his thumb and index finger to twist, pull, and pinch the nipple, causing her to groan under his ministrations. While that was happening, he laid kisses on her erect nub before he opened his mouth and let his tongue run wild, tracing concentric circles around her nipple. The fire inside her grew even larger as the heat began to overwhelm her when his tongue finally touched her sensitive nub. When he did this, he looked up right into her eyes and she watched as he began to use his tongue to flick at her hypersensitive nipple, and she moaned again as he gave it a good suck. His left hand was now resting on her stomach as it traced and rubbed circles into her toned stomach. Her hands moved up to his hair and they each grabbed a fistful and pushed his mouth closer to her bosom as he nipped and teased the pink nubs. He then switched, kissing across the valley of her, and then he gave the other the same treatment and she arched her back when he pinched and bit her nipples at the same time. The fire in her belly was threatening to spill over when she felt the hand on her stomach move south and dig under her pants. It passed her hips, and went down to her hot, and he slowly slid a finger up and down her wet slit through her panties. At the same time, his left hand pinched her right nipple and his teeth tugged at her left, and the influx of pleasure caused the fire in her belly to spill over and out as she came into his panties and it diffused through onto his finger. It was sudden and she wasn't ready for his actions, and the next thing she knew, she let out a high-pitched scream. Her orgasm came in waves. When she came of her orgasm, he went back to her face and kissed her gently, conveying the passion and love he felt for her. Her hands unclenched from his hair and wrapped around his waist as she flipped their positions so he was on the bottom. She then took of his vest and his shirt. He moaned as her hands began to rub circles into his chest and stomach while she still nipped and licked at his pulse point, throwing in the occasional suck. She soon began to descend again and kissed down his collarbone and latched onto his right nipple, giving it a quick lick before kissing across the planes of his chest to his other nipple and then down his abdomen, and she took her time to trace his abs with her tongue before she stopped at his pants and took them off, also removing his boxers forcefully. Tamao was slightly surprised at the length of his since he was pretty big. She then wrapped her right hand around it as she began to stroke him, which earned her a loud groan from him as she could only smirk at how well she was doing. She then laid subtle kisses on his before she engulfed him in her mouth. Naruto could only groan when she started sucking his. This was the best feeling he ever had as she continued bobbing her head up and down on his while her other hand was massaging his balls. She suppressed the gag reflex and took all of him in her mouth, where she wriggled her mouth and he tossed back his head in a long whimper as she cupped and rolled his testes in her soft hand. She hummed against his and the vibrations massaged his length and he felt himself at the edge and a little push would knock him off. Air became a necessity and she let him out of her mouth with a wet pop and took in a gulp of air and went back down on him, bobbing her head faster than before, and she felt his hands in her hair and she smiled into his. Making an effort to make him come, she sped up and she squeezed his balls and the pleasure made him howl and she felt his balls intense up and he yelled, "I'm coming." She deep-throated him once more and hummed, causing him to go over the edge and she felt his twitch. Immediately pulling back, she let everything fall out except the head of his as it twitched and ejaculated into her mouth. Spurts of cum erupted from the tip in his and she struggled to swallow everything, but some of it dribbled out of her mouth and onto her tits. "Are you ready for the main course?" She whispered into his ear as she took of her panties, then got on top of him and took a hold of his as she positioned herself on top of him. She then descended down his and could only moan at the pleasure of having her engulfed by his. She then began to move up and down, but she felt even more pleasure when he started to thrust into her with reckless abandon for about 5 minutes. That was until he flipped them over. She was now on the bottom while he was at the top. A light pain throbbed from her, but the pleasure of him thrusting in and out of her overwhelmed and squashed the feeling. They moved slowly and lovingly at first, with their hands rubbing against every inch of their partner's body. The feelings soon overtook them and put them into a frenzy and lusty state, and they began to speed up, her hips meeting with his thrust with loud smacks as their flesh collided together. Her bounced every time he pumped into her, the force pushing them to and fro. Her legs had unconsciously wrapped around his hips and made him go even deeper than before, but gave him less room to pull back and slam in. Intimate touches and kisses were shared between them while this went on. His hand was gripping her tits while another was holding her hand on the bed. He leaned over and kissed her before he used the hand on to raise her up, and he latched his mouth to her nipple, and the extra pleasure made the fire in her belly grow exponentially and she could feel her release coming soon. "F faster, Naru-kun. Harder," she screamed out after a rather hard thrust. He stayed in that same position for a moment, completely buried into her hot before he pulled back out and slammed back in faster than before. The feeling in her stomach began to grow and it soon threatened to spill over as he increased his speed and strength of his thrusts. For Naruto, her tight wet cavern had already set him on edge the first time he pumped into her. He let himself adjust to the new sensation before he pulled back out and slammed back in. Her moans accompanied the smacks as well as his groans every time her clenched when he hit her G-spot. They continued on for 15 minutes before the fires in their stomachs caught up with them, and when she begged him to go faster, he did just that, and the feeling overwhelmed him as his thrusts began to fill with lust. The signs of their orgasms began to show up, the twitch of his inside of her and the clenching of her after every thrust. Every thrust, every kiss drew them closer to their release, and when he felt her walls tighten around his length, the warmth of her tossed him over the edge and he yelled out, "I'm going to see cum." At the same time, Tamao felt him hit her cervix, the entrance to her womb, and that alone put her over the edge and she cried out, Me too." They came at the same time, their juices meeting each and mixing together inside her. His cum hit the walls of her vagina as her juices flowed greatly out of hers, splashing his that was buried deep into her. The juices dribbled out of her hot and drenched the bed with their essence. They stayed connected for a few minutes, allowing themselves to ride out their respective orgasms, and when it passed, Naruto fell onto her and his face buried its way in between the valley of her. They could not move any more from their orgasms as Naruto lifted the bed covers over them and they went into a deep slumber from their orgasms. Naruto had one last thought before he completely succumbed to his slumber. Thank Kami, I learned an anti-pregnancy jutsu from that medical book. The bright rays from the sun burned his eyes as Naruto looked up and saw he was in a hotel, which had him alarmed since he never remembered renting a room. He tried to move when he felt something on his chest. He looked down and saw a mop of blue hair on his chest. Then last night's activities came back to him as he could only blush and smile. Now I know why Jiraiya always went to the brothel almost every night, were Naruto's thoughts as the feeling of having were nothing he had ever felt before. Speaking of the Sannin, Naruto knew he would have to summon the toads to see if he could still summon them or not, seeing that he was banished from Konoha. He was interrupted from his thoughts by a groan. Good morning, Tamao-chan, Naruto said, hoping that he would not get beaten for what happened. Sometimes women could become violent and she had been drunk, so she might not even remember last night. Tamao looked at him and for a moment Naruto was afraid he was going to be on the receiving end of the female fist of fury. However, she just gave him a saucy smile. Good morning to you too, Naruto-kun, I hope you enjoyed last night. Naruto gave an internal sigh of relief as he grinned at her. I had a very good time last night. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Naruto's answer was a steaming kiss on the lips, which soon turned into a small makeout session. It lasted for a while before they entered the shower and had another round. It was later in the day when they both went their separate ways as she thanked Naruto for everything. He was now trying to figure out his next move. I need to find a place of my own, I can't be staying at hotels every night. Konoha. Tsunade could only sigh as she got a report from Jiraiya stating that he had found nothing about Naruto. Ever since Naruto left, she had wanted Jiraiya to keep an eye on him so he would not get into any trouble, but the problem was the kid disappeared off the face of the earth. The pervert's spy network could not find him anywhere. At first she was worried that Akatsuki had got to him, but Jiraiya had informed her that they were also looking for him as well, which meant they hadn't gotten to him. She was then afraid that something might have happened to him, but according to the toads he was fine since his name hadn't been taken off the scroll yet. The toads had tried reverse summon, but something had been blocking them from summoning him. Where had he disappeared to? Konoha had changed a little since Naruto was banished. Jiraiya had put a seal on Sasuke as soon as the kid had woken up. It was kind of like the caged bird seal, except it was automatic. Should the brat leave the village without permission, the seal would automatically activate, killing him instantly. Sakura and the rest of the Chunins that had been in the same year as Naruto were a little saddened about what happened to him, but had gotten over it after and things had returned to normal for them. Kakashi and Jiraiya were a different story. They both felt like they had failed Minato, especially Jiraiya since he was the boy's godfather and he never bothered to take care of the child. Now he spent most of his time outside the village looking for him through his spy network, while Kakashi just stood on at the memorial ground a lot more than he used to. Konoha had suffered the worst when villages like Snow Country and Wave Country heard about his banishment. They had originally wanted to cut ties with Konoha, but as much as they hated to admit, a lot of their revenue from trades came from Konoha, since out of all the 5 hidden villages, Konoha had the biggest population by far. They did the next best thing and raised their prices on everything that they imported and exported to Konoha. Suna was another one that had nearly backed out of the alliance because of Gaara, who was now the Kage. He had initially wanted to break their alliance, but that would mean that his village would have no allies, and if a war broke out they were on their own, so he kept the alliance, but their relationship had been strained until he got captured by Akatsuki. She had to send Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai and Asuma's team to retrieve him from Akatsuki. From the reports, by the time they got there they had already extracted the Biju from him, but luckily one of the elders had used a forbidden medical jutsu to bring him back to life at the cost of her own soul. Their alliance still wasn't that strong, but it was still better than it was before. Tsunade could only sigh as she looked at Konoha from the Hokage Tower and hoped that they found Naruto before Akatsuki did.